What's going on, everybody? How are we doing today? Thank y'all for joining us here for our part three of the 5 levels of leadership. So today, I'm joined with my two brothers, Ryan and Richard. Triple R out here. We're gonna go ahead and talk about level three. All right, hey, my brothers, go ahead and say a couple words to the audience, and let's dive into it.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, hey, I just want to say hi, everybody. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you've come in before, then wicked, welcome back. This level is pretty interesting. It's getting to some pretty advanced stuff, and the two gentlemen to my left and to my right definitely have this one like on target. Like we just had a quick chat before we started here, and they're going to bring up some really awesome points. So thanks for joining us, and yeah, make your comments. Good to have you.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be on again. Oz, thanks for the opportunity, brother. Looking forward to getting to step three, or level three, should I say. It's going to be intense. Thank you for taking the time to watch if you're watching, honestly, because it means that what we're doing here as a team is reaching out and touching people and either improving your leadership style or just giving you knowledge so you can do some self-improvement. So
All right, so here we go. So level three was about production, productivity. Are we making things happen or are we just in motion? All right. Are we making things happen or are we just in motion? Now, what he talked about in level three was the first thing out the gate was he said production separates real leaders from wannabes. And I was like, ooh, we about to get heavy. It's about to get heavy in here. And so the way that we're going to set this talk up is that there's five upsides to productivity. And today we're going to talk about 3 of them because that's all we're going to have time to talk about. And at the end of the day, we still want you to go out, get the books so that you can dig all those nuggets out. There's so much information in this book that we can't put it all here for you. Like this is like a little teaser. So you go out there and get the book. Once again, it's the 5 Levels of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. All right. And this is part 3 where we talk about production. So the first upside of production is leadership product production gives credibility to leaders. All right. And this brings us to our first story. All right. So there's a general, right? There's a General Epidemus. I know I probably just jacked his name up, but he was actually a general and a leader of thieves. But his army defeated the Spartan army. Look at that. That ain't something you hear every day. Now, this guy was so great at what he did that he caused a whole lot of division inside. He had a whole lot of professional jealous. So they really were jealous of him. So what they did was they took him and said, well, since you're so great at doing this and we can't find anything wrong on you, we're going to give you a job at a lower station. So they put him in charge of trash collection. This guy just defeated one of the Spartan army's like sections or whatever, and they make him the trash collection guy. So what he said was he knew that they were trying to get the better of him. So what he said was this. He said, if the job doesn't reflect glory to me, I'll reflect glory upon the job. And I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away when that statement was made because it speaks to a lot. My brothers, what do y'all have on that?
Richard?
yeah, so really what we talked about, and this hits home is like it doesn't matter where you're at in life or what you're doing, how successful you've been or how successful you haven't been. If you can get to this third level and you can start producing and make yourself credible, it doesn't matter where anybody puts you. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Because if you go into that position and you do your best at it, whether you're in charge of a $2 million job, a $10 billion job, or a 10-cent job, you can always reflect who you are into the position. But the position can never reflect onto you to make you who you are. That's really what it is. What you got, Ryan?
Ryan?
Awesome, bro. Seriously, man. Yeah, you know what, guys? Couple things on that, man. There's been a couple times in my life when I wondered if people were maybe jealous of me, and maybe they were. But you know what I think now is maybe they weren't jealous of me. They just knew I had something coming, right? So I think in this particular case, this guy, maybe he was lucky. You know, maybe maybe the weather just worked out for him. Maybe, you know what I mean? Who knows? But like maybe it wasn't jealousy. Maybe he's like, yo, that guy just got lucky, man, and now he's just living off the fame, you know? In the meantime, though, he did prove himself in the long run. You know, people can be heroes one day and they can make big mistakes. Like, you know, they can do things that are like shameful. Like, you know, there was like that runner that like killed his wife. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard to come back from that. You know what I mean? Nice one, bro. But that's obviously sarcasm, huge sarcasm. Um, but yeah, it's something to think about. The other thing is, you know, I remember, for example, I was given a position. I joined the infantry. I always wanted to be a rifleman, kick in the doors. I love that stuff. It's what I was born for, to walk, to patrol, you know. And every time I always got out in the field, they always gave me these stupid jobs, and it usually was something like SIGs bitch, you know what I mean? And I had to work with the officer, and I always saw it as a bad thing. But now everybody was trying to tell me, look, man, the officer chose you. You know what I mean? Now you know you're in orders. You always know what's going on. You know what I mean? You get to see real leadership, an example of real leadership. But like my attitude as a young soldier was, give me my rifle back. Well, I had the rifle, but I didn't like the radio. You know what I mean? So like, there's a couple of things there that makes you realize like attitude's a big thing. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't Mr. General Epaminondas. That's a little bit closer than you got.
Tongue
I was
twister.
no General Epaminondas. Anyway, so that's mine.
So, and what we're gonna see at level 3 is that, and this is something that I say all the time. Like a lot of things are done through doing. Credibility is done through doing. You have to go out there and do things for credibility to manifest. Because we can sit here all day and say, "Hey, I have this goal to accomplish X," but yet I don't take any actions to actually accomplish that goal. I'm never going to build credibility, because that credibility is basically, you know, the successes that you've gained, and the successes of your team and the people that you've led, you know, that track record. So that's what we're going to see a lot of in the the 6 upsides to production. Now, second part was this. The second upside to production is that leadership production, the leadership production the leader, let me get my words right. The leader gets out there and sets an example. They set an example and a model for everybody else to follow. So one of the stories that was in here was General George Washington, right? During the Revolutionary War. He's seen a group of soldiers, and they were out trying to put this beam up, and they couldn't get the beam up. So he goes over and he watches for a while, and there's a corporal over there that's just, you know, saying, trying to give all this motivational speech and everything to get the beam put up. So as that corporal goes over there, as he goes up to the corporal, he's like, "Hey, I was just wondering why you didn't go over and help." And he looks back at him. He's like, "I don't know if you realized it, but I'm the corporal." And he said, "Okay." He gets off his horse. He takes his jacket off. He goes over. He helps him, and they put the beam up. He goes back and he tells him, he said, "If you need help from this point forward, call George Washington. I'll help you." And I thought that was sarcasm. That was leading by example. That was all of that, because that's what a leader should do. Like, I got it. We're not saying that a leader always have to be shoulder and shoulder in the trenches with their people, but they have to go out and show that they have the ability to do so, because those people will bend over backwards for you when you actually get down there and show them, like, "Look, I may not necessarily know how to do what it is that you're doing, but guess what? I don't mind getting my hands dirty and learning."
Yeah.
What do you got, Ryan?
Well, man, honestly, like right away, I think like I've read a lot about George Washington. I'm a Canadian, but I'm actually fascinated by some of your leaders, because you have a lot of great military leaders. Like, are they perfect people? Not necessarily, but George Washington was actually quite an amazing man. Like, even in his death, he died the same way. Like, he got pneumonia from being out on his horse in the rain, working out in his fields with all of his people. Like, he basically like was told by his wife, "Stay in," and he's like, "Meh." You know what I mean? Just like most old school soldiers, he didn't get it. You know, but the guy was like, I don't know, you guys know better than me. He was like 81 or something, or 78. He's pretty up there, you know. And yeah, he wasn't perfect for sure, but he definitely was a good warrior and a good leader. And you know, he really did, like you said, it really matters that you take action. Both of you brought that point up, and he brings it up a number of points in his book. We talked about it last week as well. Is like even vision has to be demonstrated. We said that. This is like much more beyond that. This is actually leadership taking action to the phase of productivity. It's extremely exciting because really, what is the point of this if you don't get things done, right? So that's my whole take on that.
Mm.
For sure.
Richard?
So, you know, there's a couple things in the book and in this section. It's like one of the biggest things is ask from others only what you have previously asked from yourself.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
like really, like he went to the corporal, said, "Why aren't you over there working?" He said, "You know what? Go ahead, corporal, handle your business. I'm gonna go over here and help the mission get done because I've already had to do that mission before, and I know what it takes, so I'm gonna give him the hand." So, like, in that statement, it's just like he proved time and time again as our first commander in chief, as the general of the army, time and time again that he would be out there with the troops, not just back behind them planning and sending orders forward. And that's really the base of what we're talking about is just get out there, get on the ground, not because you want to show them that you can be there, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, don't try to prove something to your subordinates. Be like, "Oh, look at me, I'm out here helping you." No, that's not what it's about. If that's your intent behind you being there, don't go there.
Hey, they gonna see through it. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
one thing that soldiers are good at, seeing through bullcrap.
Absolutely.
If you thinking you gonna bullcrap a soldier, trust
Mm.
me, they are seeing through you like a dang on glass of water. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about Abraham Lincoln, right?
Oh.
So old honest Abe, right? So Abraham Lincoln was a horrible soldier. Horrible. All right. So he got demoted from like captain to private because like when it came down time for him to maneuver the troops, he could never do it. He could never remember the commands and stuff. But I'm gonna make a point here with this. This isn't the bash on old honest Abe. The point of it was this. Later on, you know, once he got to the position where he was at, we all know what he was. Once he got to that position, he actually relieved one of the generals, General John C. Furman, right? He relieved this guy because this guy never made himself accessible to everybody. He never was there and he was never present to set the example so that people could see what it was like, what right looked like. So he was like, this is this guy's biggest hangup. I don't need leaders like this. I need leaders who are present and who are there that people can see. I need tangible leaders. So he pulled this guy out. Now, when you look at it, you'll say, well, he was a horrible soldier. How did he know what it took? Like what it took to produce great soldiers and stuff like that. Just because he didn't excel in that leadership position doesn't mean he didn't understand what it took to be a leader. And I think he demonstrated this very well by firing that general. What do y'all have, gentlemen?
If I may, this is the perfect time to bring up that QB point I was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, Americans, you guys love football. I love football too. I've always said I'm an American born in Canada. So unfortunately, our form of football is pretty lame, straight up. Sorry if you have friends that played in the CFL. You probably do. You know, because like people do it and all the time. It's that easy. No offense to people that actually tried real hard to get in and didn't make it, but yeah. Anyways, but yeah, there was a quarterback up here in Canada, CFL. Like, it wasn't even that big of a deal, really. But the next thing I found out is this dude's down in California, and he's considered the world's greatest quarterback coach. And what's really weird is that he's coaching Snoop Doggy Dogg's kids on how to be QBs, and he's also coaching, believe it or not, Joe Montana's kids. Now, I guess
Joe
Joe
Montana?
Montana's being a little bit lazy. You know what I mean? Or maybe he doesn't believe in himself anymore, or he forgets what the heck he pulled off in the past. Because like he was actually pretty good at quarterbacking. like apparently maybe even Joe Montana is like, yo, I'm the best on the field, but I'm not a good coach. Maybe he knows he can't coach his own kids. But the point is, the best QB coach wasn't the best QB. In fact, he wasn't even much of a QB at all. So like that's something to think about when it comes to natural leadership. Like somehow, some way, this guy's really pulling it off. And I guess it's because he's producing quarterbacks, and it doesn't matter what kind of quarterback he was. So this is all like, man, as we read this, boys, did you see how much time it came up? People, build team, people. That's the whole theme of this chapter. If you want to break it down to one word, people. You know what I mean? And yeah, I guess he's building quarterbacks. He's building people. He's not building himself. He's building quarterbacks, which is what the point is of his business, right? So, wow, great example.
Let me throw one more thing in there. So, I listen to a little Andre 3000, every now and again. I partake. That's my dude. But I heard Andre 3000 do an interview, and he talked about like Andre 3000 is like debatably one of the best. Like he's one of the GOATs. But either way, I heard him do an interview where he said that the reason that he hasn't made music in a really long time is that he's afraid that he's going to tank what he's already done because he may not be as great as he once was. Mm. So I think it's very interesting. Like when we talk about confidence and we talk about leadership and stuff like that, how like you got to get out here and do this stuff because it's a perishable skill. And someone could easily lose confidence when they get out of practice and they got to start that entire cycle all the way over again to get back to that point to where they felt confident. Richard?
Yeah. So, I'll do some inner looking right real quick. So I'll tell you, some of the NCOs that knew me, some of the leaders, warrant officers that knew me as between the ranks of private and specialist, they would have told you that Richard, he ain't going to make it 20 years. Richard's never going to be a non-commissioned officer. He's never going to lead troops because he's great at turning wrenches, but he's horrible at following directions. And I took that as motivation, as you know what, like I might not have been the best soldier, but when I finally was forced into the position to lead, and good NCOs and good officers and good warrant officers looked at me and said, hey, you have the potential, you have the knowledge, and stopped looking at what my past was and started looking at my potential. That's really what changed. And then they gave me the purpose, motivation, direction that we talk about in the U.S. Army so much to move forward and make myself better. And 100% of why I'm here right now doing this with Oz and Ryan is because I don't want what I was offered and what I was given the opportunity to lead inside the United States Army to stop at, oh, well, I took the knowledge, I made myself successful. No, someone else gave me the opportunity. Somebody else taught me. And now I'm over here trying to give it back.
Yeah.
Because that's what it, if you don't look at your past and you don't see where you were at and overcome it, like what are we really doing? How are we getting to it? Like, you don't have to always have been great to have the opportunity to be great. So,
you know what that reminds me of, gentlemen? If I can't remember who said it or exactly how it's said, but I'm paraphrasing. But it's basically, if you want a great person or a natural leader to do something, tell them they can't do it. So there you go.
Yeah, and you a lot of times you'll hear people say things like, I can't do X because my house isn't clean. Why should you not try to like give somebody something that you're good at or help them in a situation that you're good at because your stuff isn't taken care of? So you're going to just hold on to it and not share it because you're not where you want to be at in your life. And I don't, it's not really advice that I prescribe to. And I can understand why they would feel that way. But at the same token, like if you can help somebody, like you don't have to be the best at it to get after it and do it. Maybe that thing that you share with them will help them, and they can take that thing to the next level that you couldn't take it to.
Yeah.
For example, you got people like Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players to ever live, but he didn't become a coach. I'm just saying, like, I don't know why he didn't become a coach, but there's plenty of people that do the same thing. Like, they excel in, the fields and stuff that they're in, but they don't decide to go on and coach. And, for whatever reason, just because you were good in that field doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. And just because you were bad in that field don't mean you're going to be a bad coach. I guess what I'm really getting after is, like, get out there and give that advice to somebody and just let them do what they may. But there was another story too, the sales story. All right. So there's this gentleman, right? And he worked for this company and he was a salesman. So he goes out to this location like Mississippi or something like that. And he writes this letter back to the corporate company. And he's like, yeah, I'm out here selling. And he spelled sell like a sail on a seaboat. I'm selling all of this stuff, yada, yada, whatever. The letter was so grammatically incorrect that the one of the managers had it. And I think he was like the manager of sales or something like that. And he got the letter and he's like, oh my God, like if the CEO sees this, it's going to be a problem. So the guy goes to another state like Louisiana and he spells sell again like a sail on a sailboat. He's like, I done sold like 1 million of these dang on products and I just can't stop selling. So finally, the CEO gets both of the letters and he posts them on the message board. And as he posts them on the message board, he writes another letter on top of it. Now, the sales manager is like, I got to fire this dude. If I don't fire this dude, it's going to be on me. What the CEO decided to put up there was like, look, he spells everything incorrectly, uses the same grammar that the salesman used. And he says, we've been spending too much time trying to learn how to spell when we should have been learning how to sell. So, and he spelled sell the same way and all of that. But what I thought was interesting about that story was that, like he said, the guy may not have been a level 3 speller, but he was sure a level 3 seller. So I found the humor in that, and I thought it was funny. And what I was getting at with that one was like, it comes down to talent management. Just because someone isn't great in one area doesn't mean they can't be great in another. So look for that thing that they're good at and have them do it. Because imagine if the qualification for this guy to get that job would have been a spelling test. He would have never got the job. But he had the highest sales out of everybody. But they didn't allow that to manipulate him. And that what he was saying was like, that was an example of an organization using this guy's good attributes as a standard for everybody to follow. Like, we don't care how he spells. We want y'all to sell how he's selling. So whatever he's doing, y'all need to figure it out and replicate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gentlemen?
I think that actually that drives into the next one. What was the topic we were going to talk about?
I got you. I go ahead and walk us into it. So the next one, the third upside of production is that leaders at the production level bring clarity. All right, they bring clarity and reality to the vision. So in this level of production, the production actually communicates the vision through actions. So now we're no longer in the stage of like describing what the vision is. We're in the stage of actually doing it. So we're out here, we're doing it. We've had our plan. And when we did our plan and everything, everybody knew what they were supposed to be doing all the way down to the lowest level. And now we're putting it into action. And when people are falling short, we have ways to go in there and determine like if they succeeded or if they failed. And then we coach them. We coach them and we set that example so that they can actually see what right looks like and what it is that's being expected of them when it comes to production.
Yeah. So in that and in that vision itself there, knowing how do I put this? So understanding how to put out the vision, not just to the board of executives,
Yeah.
or to your managers within your formations or inside your company, but understanding that the vision has to be transparent all the way down to the most junior member of the team. And your ability as a leader to do that and to keep refreshing it as it goes on. We talked about this, is just making sure that the vision is known all the way down to the junior level, and then making sure that you come back to it and you're just like, hey, we're still getting after this. This is still the goal. We haven't changed what we're doing. You're doing great. Oh, wait, hold on. You might be falling short a little bit. Let's get you in line so we can still be productive.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing, gentlemen. Like, this chapter was full of military/history examples and sports examples. Now, you guys know I'm all military. I'm so passionate about military and military history, right? That's my thing. You know what I mean? But I far prefer the sports examples because I'll be honest with you guys, sports seems to have better examples of efficient teams. You know, in the military, we got a lot of old school thinking and we work with what we got, and that's okay. You know what I mean? You got to work with what you got and you can make the most of what you've been given, right? But at the same time, like when you consider sports and like, you know, you are cut. And like you can take a look at the example of the special forces, or the more elite you get up the chain of command, for example, or not through the chain, sorry, but through the military, you start to get into that team mentality. And we do hear terms like team at that level at that point, right? It's quite amazing to see the different mentality. The old school sergeant majors really hate those types because they know they get a big budget and they don't like the way they do business. But the way they do business might be the way that we end up doing business, because we know that what they do trickles down to us, from the shape of their helmets to the way that they operate in the theater. And, you know, they stay cool under pressure. They treat themselves well. They don't raise their voice anytime that they don't have to. And they get a lot of work done under that sort of facilitating themselves under that way. So it's really something worth thinking about there. You know what I mean?
And I think it would be good to bring in the principles of management to this conversation that we're having right now, especially when we're talking about production. So management isn't something that we really talk about a whole lot. Like I forgot who it was, but there was an admiral who said that, you know, we lead men into battle and we manage problems, or we manage situations. And I think ever since that statement was made, management was looked at as, you know, a bad taboo word. But when you actually break down the principles of management, you know, you got to plan, you got to organize, you got to lead and control. My assessment is this: you can absolutely lead without managing, but you cannot manage without leading, because the third principle of management is leading. You got to plan, you got to organize your resources and things like that. You know, make sure that you have the personnel that you need to be able to accomplish the task. Make sure they're trained. Make sure they have the appropriate amount of man hours to be able to carry out what it is. You know, that input, that throughput versus the input and the output. And then, you know, we got to lead. We got to lead them. Like we planned it. We told them what the plan was. We done described the vision. We organized everything. We made sure they had all the resources that they needed to accomplish the job and the task. And now we're in the leadership phase where we're leading them through whatever it is that they need to do. So we're going back and we're checking on what it is that needs to be done to ensure that it got done. Because like we always say, at the end of the day, you can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. The responsibility lies with the person that it was given to. And then the very last thing is the control piece. And the control piece is gotten after by how we measure what success is. And all of that stuff, we're back to clarity, has to be made clear. Everyone has to understand what the metric of measurement is. They have to clearly understand it. So they know, like, hey, look, if I do X, this is not acceptable. If I do Y, this is where we want to go. I need more of Y, less of X. This is how we get there. So, like, I think that management conversation is something that we're going to have to have a whole lot more of, because I know, at least in my experience, management isn't something that we talk about. Normally, it is something that you see done, and it's implied that you figure it out. And once you figure it out, you're supposed to come back and apply it with practical application without actually being given a block of instructions or having it explained to you. It's just something that you're supposed to pick up along the way. And with the conversation that we're having right now, when we talk about production, I think it's very important that we talk about principles of management, like we just said: plan, organize, lead, and control.
So can I add on to that real quick? So I think
Absolutely, my brother.
in the organized phase is one thing that I really wanted to key on, because we talk about the law of the niche and knowing as a leader who plays what role on the team. Because if you don't know who's playing what role or where they're at, you might misassign them. You know, I might give Ryan something that Oz needs to do because Oz has proven that he's going to bat 1,000 every time he does that. But if I give it to Ryan, knowing that Oz is the one that's going to produce for me, then as a leader, I'm missing the mark. At the same time, the law of the niche also applies inward. Like, you can't be anywhere in the organization and it be about you. You can't. You can't be in that organization. Like, it doesn't matter if you're the senior commander on ground, if you're an NCO in the middle, if you're a worker in the motor pool. It doesn't matter where you're at, how it falls, or what you're doing. It can never be about you. The leaders that are on top, that get up front and they have to repeat who they are, they have to repeat what position they're in. It's about them. And that's the wrong way. Like, you have to know your role. Sometimes your role when you're on the top is to be transparent, to be present, and to be supporting. And sometimes all those things, it comes down to, well, maybe everything's working so well, you just need to be George Washington now and go help put a beam up, because it's not about you. So that's really what I had on the principles of management, like that organization. If as a leader you can't define what your people are doing or what their strengths and weaknesses are, not saying that you're not going to try to make them strong in different areas, just saying, you know what, I know he's going to knock this out the park for me, so I'm going to give it to him because it's going to make the team successful.
So let's talk about the shadow side of that as well. So we know what the shadow side is. We have that one individual who always bats like 1,000 for us every time, and that becomes the workhorse, and the workhorse gets burnt out.
Yeah.
You know, like, how many times have we seen that where, you know, that one workhorse that's been working hard this entire time, those end up being the individuals that don't get promoted. Because while those other jokers weren't being put to work and stuff like that, they were being allowed to go to school and do all these other things that's going to set them up to be future leaders. But the ones that were actually out there doing the work didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's a shadow side to everything. Ryan, you had something, brother?
Yeah, just something that Richard brought up, it made me think of like examples, like even in the infantry, you know, I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, but like left-handed people are really, really a benefit, you know, because they can cover the arcs so easily that, you know, like right-handed people just naturally want to cover left-handed arc because of the way the rifle points, right? And then likewise, left-handed people want to cover right. They're great in trenches. They're great fire team partners or trench partners, or whatever you guys call them, like in urban operations, because like you can peel around a corner on one way and they can go around the other. Like, really awesome teammate, you know, right hand, left hand combination, right? Especially if you're not ambidextrous and you don't train up for it. But, you know, I've actually had many, many examples when sections were put together and the order of battle was put together, and, you know, hastily, and basically somebody didn't even consider the fact that left-handed people should be covering the arc that's most convenient for them. And we've got everybody all along the way working awkwardly against their natural tendencies just because somebody didn't think for a second to just use the two lefties and have them point right. You know, so having right-handers point right, I mean, it's very awkward. You know, I don't know how many times you guys have gone out and had to cover an arc, you basically end up walking sideways. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
if you're being tracked by the enemy, they can read that. They know, like, oh man, these guys don't even know what they're doing. They're not even ambidextrous. You know?
You're right. That's a good point, and I think we were talking about this earlier right here, about being that example. Being that change agent that you want to see. Like if there's change that you want to see in an organization, then you need to emulate that. Like at the end of the day, you can't come to work and tell everybody you want them to be there 20 minutes early, and you want them to take a half an hour lunch, and you want them to leave a half an hour late, and you ain't doing none of that. You got to be that change that you want to see in the organization. What do y'all have on that, gentlemen? I know y'all probably got some more points that y'all want to cover.
Man, I tell you, this has been a hot topic in the Army right now, and because of where we're going, and I'll bring it up. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. The Army is normally, the U.S. military is normally at the forefront of whatever's changing in society. Whether it be repealing the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, transgenders in the service, whatever it is, like normally the U.S. military is the first ones to try to adopt it, try to move into it, right? And being the change agent inside of an army or inside of a military that's constantly progressing towards something new, if you're not willing to be a change agent to support it, how are you improving the team? Like you can't improve the team if you're sitting back going, well, back in the early 2000s, we didn't do things like that. I don't know, what are you talking about? Like we haven't fought a war the same way ever. Every war that we fought, something's changed about it. Something's evolved. Something's, the tactics, the techniques, the procedures has changed every war that we fought in as a U.S. military. If we still fought our adversaries like we fought the Revolutionary or Civil War, we would not be a global power. So you have to support by being the change agent that looks at, okay, where do I fit in with this? How do I support it? How do I get it to my formation in a positive manner that they see, hey, this crusty old NCO who's been in the Army 20 years now, he's willing to change, and he's been doing it for 20 years. And that's how I look at it for myself, is what am I doing to accept where the Army's going and educate subordinates into being positive towards the Army's goals.
Yeah, you can't expect people to buy into something that you clearly haven't bought into. Like that whole faking until you make it, that's a joke. Like people see straight through that. You can't expect people to buy into something that you haven't. For example, when we switched to the ACFT, or even when we switched to PRT from 21-20, you had people doing old 2120 stuff forever. They're still doing rotations and hip rotations and neck rotations and all of this stuff. And we done had dang on PRT on the block since like God knows when, but people are still doing the old stuff. So leaders had to go out and buy into it and invest into the direction that we were moving in to get everybody else to come on board, because you haven't bought into it. You're faking like you done bought into it. Your people know when you've actually bought into something and when you're just like going along to get along. Like if you've truly bought into it and you genuinely want to move in that direction, you learn what it is that you need to learn about it, and then you take it back to your people. Because I'm a big fan for I don't believe in people teaching my people stuff, period. That's just me. Like when it comes to my people, I'll go out and I get it. There's certain things where we have to bring outside agencies in, but my people, you'll go get the knowledge and you'll bring it back and you'll teach your own people, because that's a part of the developmental process, and that's a part of you building a bond with your teammates. Like how are you supposed to build a bond with your teammates, and there are things that you are absolutely capable of teaching them, but you have somebody else do it?
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
What you got?
Yeah, guys, you guys are brilliant. I love it. Well, I just want to actually, I really like what you said, Richard. I just want to highlight one extra point, man. And like I'm saying this as a Canadian, it's not my place to tell Americans, you know, you're your own country. You know what I mean? But some of the things I see in my own country, there's a lot wrong with my army. I actually think that there's more wrong with the Canadian army than there is with the U.S. army. I might be wrong, but yeah, it's. But I also see things wrong with my country. But you know what? I see a lot of things right with my country, and I see a lot of things right with my army. Right? I think what makes the army a cut above a mass society is the fact that all of us died to ourselves to become born again, something new. And when we went away for that training, that's the hero's journey in its smallest cycle. It's something that changes you forever. And it's why we're all a family. You know, it's why you have more in common with me as a Canadian soldier than you do with the civilians that you might be living next door to. Okay, it's something very special. You know, so I think that we always need to remember that, like, no matter what society is doing, we should always take it into account. But certainly, we've seen through history societies make big mistakes, and I certainly hope that we don't act the way that some societies have tended to do. I see the U.S. Army as a cut above its own people. I see the best of the U.S. Army. So that's what I get excited about. Is, man, it's such an honor to be here with the two of you. I love the U.S. Army and I love Americans. There's something I want to say. Like, I have always loved America, and you guys need to know that you are a very special people. You're blessed, you know, to be born there. Don't take it for granted. It's a great country, and you know what? You are all the people that make it so great. So be proud of what you are, and don't believe everything that's said about you. You're good people. All of you deserve to be proud of your country, you know. So that was a little off topic, but I want you to know that you should be proud of who you are.
Appreciate that, my brother. Well, look, we get into the top of the hour. If y'all don't have anything else to cover, what y'all do?
I do.
You gotta go. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I got one quick point.
Go for it.
Yeah, guys. Okay, it was on what Washington did, right? And it was really cool. There was a basketball. I love the sports examples. It's almost so amazing. But there was one coach here. I'm going to read his quote specifically. Is this okay if I do this, by the way?
Absolutely. Go for it, brother.
He said, I would observe the players shooting the ball from various places on the court. When I determined the place that made their best percentage of shots, their spot, I would take them to that place and say, this is where I want you to shoot the ball. I will design the place to make sure that happens. All right. So, like, this is a leader that's working with what he's got. It gets back to working with your lefties, so to speak. He saw these guys love it. That's his sweet spot. I'm going to work my command structure around this talented individual's sweet spot, you know. Now, it also brought me to a bit of a war story. It's not my war story, so you don't necessarily have to put your helmets on for this one, but it's still a good one nonetheless. Okay. It came from my mentor, and the guy was a freaking genius, almost like one of them military psychopaths. Okay, like, you might like him, you might not, but he was damn good at his job. Okay. Anyways, when he first got to Kandahar, he observed his new company. He observed the workers. He observed what they were doing. He observed how they treated the laundry machines, right? And he observed how they treated him, because they didn't know who the hell he was. And then everybody got out on a parade square. He had his trusted men with rifles loaded, and he started calling out names, and they went left and they went right to either side of the parade square. And the guys on one side of the parade square started to figure out pretty quickly what was happening. They started to get upset. And that was the reason for the loaded rifles. But essentially, he sent them home. Okay. There was a Herc that was leaving from another spot, like a couple hours drive. They had 2 hours, an hour to pack up their rucks. Sorry about the noise, and get out of there. You know what I mean? But, like, that's another example of a leader observing. Now, guys, like, how cool is that? I've always loved that example. And Washington did the same thing. Maybe as we develop ourselves as leaders, there's so much more that we can do by observing. You know, like, almost like a commander observing the battlefield. You need to know what you're working with, and how better to observe what you're working with than to do it as a ninja, right? Nobody needs to know that you're Superman, and you don't need to put the cape on necessarily, especially when you first arrive. Like, let them think you're the janitor. Like, really see who has the integrity. You know what I mean? So that's just like something to think about. Like you might be able to use that trick, but that might be like one of those oldest trick in the books. That might go back long beyond like even ancient Greece. Like somebody might have figured that out like as a caveman or something, but like really, really smart stuff. Like to really know what you're working with and what you're starting with. Observe, you know, in silence, ninja style. So
And I think that feeds into creating your own luck. You know, they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So, like you said, he allowed them to shoot from the position that they were comfortable with. And then he told them, he said, I'm going to create opportunities for you to win by shooting from your spot. He was going to create plays for them to be able to shoot from their spot. And that's how they were going to win the game. And I think that's really interesting when we look at it, because at the end of the day, that's all that luck is. Is like when an opportunity come, have you prepared yourself to take advantage of it? There's a book called Peaks and Valleys, and in Peaks and Valleys, they talk about businesses. Basically, like, you know, businesses are like peaks and valleys. They go up, and when they get on top of the peak, they're doing well, they're making a lot of money, and all of that stuff. And then when they go down into the valleys, you know, the market slows down, they're not making as much money. But those businesses that are up on the peak, that save money and do, you know, they build infrastructure so that when they go down into the valley, they don't necessarily have a hard time. It's kind of like, you know, they've stored something up for the winter, and it's not so hard for them to survive whatever it is that's coming. So I think that book illustrates, you know, the same thing. Like we have to prepare ourselves and put ourselves in a position to be able to take advantage of our opportunity when it comes. Or even if you look at the housing market, like a lot of people talked about the housing market, the big drop in 2007, where the housing market crashed in the United States. Well, a lot of people, like a lot of real estate agents, they were like, we kept making money because even though the real estate market crashed, people were still buying houses. Houses were still being sold. They just sold for cheaper. So they prepared themselves. They had money and stuff stored up. So when the market crashed, they were able to take advantage of it. They prepared themselves for that when that adversity came, that they could take advantage of the opportunity. So they basically created their own luck.
yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that well. That crash broke me and my fiance up.
Oof. I'm sorry to hear that.
Like
So-
called off the wedding and everything. Like, I'm out of here.
Crazy.
Yikes.
So real quick, also that really brings me to something that I watched Friday night. I think it was Friday night. Sergeant Major Halliburton inside his basement. He
Yep.
did that live, and man, that the words he was saying touched me, and you brought up peaks and valleys, and it automatically cued me to something that I think is pertinent in level 3 when we're talking about production, because he talked about that night about the mountaintop being the goal, and then he also spoke to why are we not, and this is just me paraphrasing because I could, you know, the man's a genius and he has years and years and years of experience that I'm seeking after. And but if all you're focused on is the goal, and we've seen the comments on training soldiers and making sure they're trained and not pigeonholing them and not making the workhorse and not doing these things that we know we're not supposed to do as leaders. But if the mountaintop's the goal, what's stopping you? And I put this comment in there when he was doing his talk. What's stopping you from tying a rope around your waist, throwing it out the backside, and telling all your people you manage or that you lead, hey, grab a hold because we're all going up this hill. like you know your people, you know your strengths and weaknesses. You know that that in the production phase, it's not about your intent, it's about what comes out of what you're doing. Intent doesn't matter anymore. Like intent is what you build relationships on. Like I intend to do these things for you. I intend to take care of you. I intend to do all this stuff. But in the production phase, it's what are you actually getting done?
Yeah.
And if you as a leader climbing up a ladder or you're climbing up the mountain trying to reach your goals, but you left everybody down on the bottom because you ain't training them, you ain't taking care of them, you ain't doing nothing with their families, just tie a rope to yourself. Throw it out the back and tell everybody to hook up. Like tell them to hook up. Let's go. I'm going on this ride. Triple R is going on this ride of leadership development. We're gonna throw a rope out the back. We're gonna tell everybody that wants a piece of it, hey, hook up, and we'll pull you up with us.
That same intentions, those same intentions are the reason that we have blind spots, because we judge ourselves based off of what our intention was. Other people judge us off of what our actual actions were. So this is why we have blind spots, you know. Like you said, like this is what the intention was, and then you look at intention versus impact, and that goes right back to that action piece. The action didn't come from the impact didn't come from the intention. It came from the action. What was it that you did exactly, and how did it transpire to get to where we're at right now? So I think when we talk about that intention versus impact conversation, and the whole goal piece. So there's a paper that Harvard wrote. All right, they wrote a paper called "Goals Gone Wild," and in this paper, they talk about how, you know, there were a lot of businesses who had all of these goals, and these goals actually led them to doing things that were unethical. Wells Fargo was one of them. You know, they had these big goals and stuff. I think it was Wells Fargo. They had these big goals and stuff of, you know, what these numbers that they were going to make, and they went out and they did some stuff that they shouldn't have did. You know, some accounts got open, and one thing led to another, and you know, there was a big scandal behind it. But they were talking about how, like, we have to set realistic goals, because when we have these stretch goals cause people to not focus directly on the quantity. It has them focus on quality. I mean, not quality, but quantity. So if we don't want them to focus on quantity and we want them to focus on quality, we need to set realistic goals. And as they build confidence, then we can broaden those goals and make those goals bigger. They even talked about intentional blindness. Like, have you ever seen a video where they'll have like a whole bunch of people in a room bouncing basketballs, and so many will be white and so many will be orange? And what they'll tell them is they'll say, count how many white basketballs you see. And then they'll have like a guy in a gorilla suit run in and run through the center of the room and run out. Nobody sees the guy in the gorilla suit because they're busy counting the basketballs. And that was one of the examples that they used for intentional blindness. And they connected that directly to goal setting. Like, when you give somebody a really specific goal that, like, I need you to do this one thing. Another example they used, they said, if you had somebody correct a paper and they say, we just want you to look for misspelled words, and there was a whole bunch of other grammatical errors, the majority of the time, nobody caught any other grammatical errors. They were only looking for misspelled words. Yeah. So it's an interesting read.
You know what, guys? Actually, Oz, the point that you just brought up, it really reminded me of something. I didn't play the drums, but my brother did. And he taught me, one of the first things that his drummer instructor taught him was technique before speed. Now, most of us are military people, and we spend time like at the rifle range and stuff like that, even in civvies and stuff. But like, you know, in basic, it's kind of like intense, like get her done, shoot, right? Like, they're not actually slowing down and like really teaching people. Well, they do, like, you know what I mean, teach people how to breathe and slow down and stuff, you know what I mean? But like technique first, the speed comes after the technique. But if you just start with the speed, you're just doing it wrong fast, right? Yeah. So like that, what you just said, kind of reminded me of that, you know what I mean? And like, there's so many ways that you can put it, but it's basically the same thing. Like, don't worry about running before you walk, and all these old sayings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
Smooth is fast. Yep. There it is.
Love it. Anyway.
All right. So I think we hit everything. Did we miss anything?
Yeah. No.
All right, my brothers, go ahead and say your parting words, and then I'll go ahead and close this out.
Cool.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, everybody. Oh, sorry, Rich.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. My bad, brother. Okay, I'll be super quick, man. I just want to say thanks, everybody. And I'm sorry I wasn't as funny as usual. Usually I try and be more funny, but like no success today. Anyways, super serious, but like thank God for these beautiful faces beside me that made up for that, you know. Thank you for listening in. It was good to have you. At some point I'm gonna read through all these comments and stuff and take some time to pay attention to what you all said. And thanks a lot for your time too. So Oz, thanks a lot. Richard, hang on, brother, love you. So hit it up, my man.
All right, yeah, same thing here. that some of these comments that were input that Oz was kicking across the screen were amazing. I'm gonna definitely take time to go back because I'm still learning, and I will love to see what the input was and see where I can adjust fire and make myself better. And as always, Oz, thank you for the platform. I appreciate your time. Ryan, you too. You know, it's great having these discussions with you guys. I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right, my brothers. Thank y'all for joining us here today. Look, I want to send a special shout out to my brother like no other, the TPSGL. All right. So Siren Hicks, my brother, has, lent me his platform to be able to do these discussions, and I really appreciate it. Everybody, thank y'all for coming out tonight. And Hank, if you hung in here with us or you watched a small part of it, we appreciate it. Help us get the message out. Go ahead and share the video, and hopefully something that we said today will resonate with somebody or to help somebody in their journey that we like to call life. As I say always, you're all important, you all matter, and don't let anybody make you feel as if you are insignificant, because if you do, you can get into this inbox and there's a plethora of platforms that's here for you. The NCOPD Live team is here for you. Freestyle Every Day for Everybody is here for you. Division is here for you. Thrive Legion is here for you. Let's Talk About It is here for you. There are many people who are here for you to help you out when you need help in your leadership journey. And once again, life is a choice, and I'm depending on you to choose well. Oz, Ryan, Richard, aka 333, signing out, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks.
All right.